The air conditioning hummed softly in the elegant hotel lobby that morning in Chicago. Guests glided across the marble floors, their designer luggage rolling smoothly behind them. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting dancing lights across the pristine white walls. It was just another ordinary Tuesday at the Grand Lake Hotel, until the revolving doors spun and she walked in. Everyone stopped. The girl looked completely out of place. Her jeans were ripped at the knees, not fashionably but genuinely worn through. Her faded green jacket had patches of dirt on the sleeves. Her sneakers were coming apart at the seams, held together with what looked like duct tape. Dust covered her face, and her dark hair hung in tangled strands around her shoulders. She carried a small backpack that looked like it had seen better days. Emma, the front desk manager, exchanged glances with her colleague, Ryan. "Is she lost?" Emma whispered, her nose wrinkling slightly. Ryan smirked. "Probably came in from the cold. Someone should tell her this isn't a shelter." The girl, her name was Maya, stood in the center of the lobby, looking around with eyes that seemed both tired and strangely calm. She approached the front desk slowly, her worn shoes squeaking slightly on the polished floor. "Good morning," Maya said softly. "I'd like to check availability for your penthouse suite." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Emma laughed, a sharp, cutting sound that echoed through the lobby. "The penthouse," Emma repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Miss, do you have any idea how much that costs per night?" Maya's expression didn't change. "Yes, I'm aware. May I please speak with someone about booking it?" Ryan leaned forward, his smile condescending. "Look, honey, the penthouse is $5,000 a night. Maybe you should try the hostel down the street. It's much more affordable." Other staff members had gathered now, whispering and giggling behind their hands. A few guests pulled out their phones, recording the scene. Maya stood there, her dignity intact despite the mockery surrounding her. "I understand the rate," Maya said quietly, her voice steady. "I'd still like to inquire about availability." Emma rolled her eyes dramatically. "Okay, let's say you could afford it, which you obviously can't. Do you even have identification? A credit card? Because we don't accept whatever it is you might have in that backpack." The laughter grew louder. One guest muttered, "How did security even let her in?" Marcus, the head of security, a tall man with broad shoulders, approached cautiously. "Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disturbing our guests." Maya turned to face him, and for just a moment, something flashed in her eyes. Not anger, but disappointment. "I'm not disturbing anyone. I'm simply trying to book a room like any other guest." "Please don't make this difficult," Marcus said, reaching for her arm. "Let's go outside." "Don't touch me," Maya said, her voice suddenly carrying an authority that made Marcus pause. The command in her tone didn't match her appearance at all. But Emma laughed again. "Oh, now she has attitude. Marcus, please just escort her out before she starts asking for money." Marcus gently but firmly took Maya's elbow and guided her toward the door. The other guests parted like waves, some recording on their phones, others shaking their heads in disgust. "She probably hasn't showered in weeks," one woman whispered loudly. "Probably on drugs," a man added. Maya didn't resist. She let herself be led to the revolving doors, her small backpack clutched against her chest. As she stepped outside into the cold Chicago morning, she looked back through the glass at the people who had judged her so quickly. What none of them knew, what they couldn't possibly have imagined, was that the dusty, tired girl they'd just thrown out was Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Horizon Tech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing software companies in the country. The girl they'd mocked was worth over $2 billion. And she'd just decided to teach them all a lesson about dignity, respect, and the danger of judging by appearances. If you're enjoying this story of transformation and redemption, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories. Comment below what you think Maya should do next. Outside the Grand Lake Hotel, Maya stood on the sidewalk, watching the morning rush of Chicago pass by. The wind was cold against her dusty face, but she barely felt it. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying the scene that had just unfolded. She reached into her worn backpack, the same one she'd carried through college, through her first startup, through every struggle that led to her success, and pulled out her phone. Not just any phone, but the latest model, custom designed for her company's executives. The screen lit up, showing dozens of missed calls and messages. But Maya wasn't ready to make that call yet. Not just yet. She walked to a nearby bench and sat down, ignoring the curious glances from passers-by. Her appearance told a story, but not the one people assumed. The dirt on her clothes wasn't from living on the streets. It was from the construction site she'd visited at dawn, the site of her new company headquarters, where she liked to walk through before the workers arrived, imagining the future. The worn shoes? She'd kept them from her college days, a reminder of where she came from. The torn jacket? It had belonged to her late father, a factory worker who taught her that a person's worth had nothing to do with their bank account. Maya had a habit, some called it eccentric, others called it reckless, of occasionally dressing down and visiting businesses anonymously. She wanted to see how companies treated people who couldn't benefit them. She wanted to witness humanity when people thought no one important was watching. Today's visit to the Grand Lake Hotel had been spontaneous. She'd been walking past after her construction site visit and remembered that her company's annual conference was coming up. She'd heard good things about the hotel and wanted to see it for herself. But she'd wanted to see the real version, not the polished performance businesses put on for VIPs. Now she'd seen it. And she was disappointed. Maya pulled up her contacts and scrolled to a name. James Mitchell, her executive assistant. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the call button. Once she made this call, everything would change. The hotel staff would know who she was. There would be apologies, panic, probably terminations. But was that what she wanted? Revenge? Humiliation? No. Maya had never been about revenge. She'd built her company on different principles: respect, second chances, growth. Some of her best employees had been people others had given up on. She believed in potential over pedigree. A memory surfaced, herself at 19, standing in a bank, trying to open a business account for her first startup. The banker had looked at her cheap clothes, her youth, her nervousness, and had dismissed her. "Come back when you have real money," he'd said. That dismissal had stung for years. She'd never forgotten how that felt, to be invisible, to be judged, to be found wanting before anyone even knew your name. Maya looked back at the hotel entrance. Through the glass, she could see Emma at the front desk, laughing with Ryan, probably still making jokes about the homeless girl they'd just thrown out. She made her decision. Maya stood up, brushed some of the dust from her jacket, and dialed James's number. "Ms. Chen." James answered immediately, his voice tight with worry. "Where are you? Security said you left the site hours ago. We've been trying to reach you." "James, I'm fine," Maya interrupted gently. "I need you to do something for me." "Anything. What do you need?" "I need you to look into the management team at the Grand Lake Hotel. Quietly. I want to know about their training programs, their hiring practices, their corporate values. Can you have that information by this afternoon?" There was a pause. "The Grand Lake Hotel? Ms. Chin, isn't that where we were considering holding the conference?" "Yes," Maya said. "But plans might be changing. I need that information, James. And one more thing. I need you to find out who owns the hotel. I want to speak with them personally." "Consider it done," James said, his tone shifting to all business. "Anything else?" Maya smiled slightly. "Yes. Have my car pick me up in 2 hours. I'm going home to shower and change. Then I'm going back to that hotel." "Going back? Why?" "Because," Maya said softly, watching Emma through the glass doors, still laughing. "Everyone deserves a chance to learn from their mistakes. Even if they don't know they've made one yet." She ended the call and slipped the phone back into her backpack. The morning sun was climbing higher, warming the cold Chicago air. In the distance, she could hear the sound of construction, her building rising floor by floor into the sky. Maya had built an empire from nothing. She'd faced rejection, mockery, and doubt at every turn. But she'd never let other people's judgments define her. And she'd never forgotten what it felt like to be underestimated. Now it was time to return to the Grand Lake Hotel. Not as the dusty girl they'd thrown out, but as herself. Fully, completely, undeniably herself. The question wasn't whether they'd recognize their mistake. The question was whether they'd learn from it. 2 hours later, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the Grand Lake Hotel's entrance. The doorman, a young man named Carlos, immediately straightened his posture and moved to open the rear door. This was clearly someone important. Maya Chen stepped out, and the transformation was stunning. Her hair, now clean and styled in soft waves, framed a face that radiated quiet confidence. She wore a charcoal gray suit tailored perfectly to her frame, paired with simple but elegant pearl earrings. Her shoes, Italian leather, probably worth more than most people's monthly rent, clicked softly on the pavement. But it was her presence that truly commanded attention. There was something about the way she moved, the way she held herself, that spoke of power earned, not inherited. Carlos didn't recognize her. How could he? The difference between the dusty girl from this morning and the polished executive before him was night and day. "Welcome to the Grand Lake Hotel, ma'am," Carlos said with a warm smile, genuinely meaning it this time. "Thank you," Maya replied, her voice kind. She noticed his name tag. "Carlos, have you worked here long?" "3 months, ma'am," he said proudly. "Do you enjoy it?" The question seemed to surprise him. Guests didn't usually ask. "Yes, ma'am. It's a good job. The pay is fair, and most days, people are kind." "Most days," Maya repeated, picking up on his careful wording. Carlos hesitated, then smiled diplomatically. "Every job has its challenges, ma'am." Maya nodded, understanding what he wasn't saying. She handed him a $20 bill. "Thank you for your honesty, Carlos." Inside, the lobby looked exactly as it had that morning. Pristine, elegant, cold. Emma was still at the front desk, though Ryan had been replaced by another colleague. Maya approached slowly, watching Emma's expression transform from bored indifference to attentive professionalism. "Good afternoon, welcome to the Grand Lake Hotel," Emma said, her smile bright and practiced. "How may I assist you today?" Maya returned the smile. "I'd like to inquire about your penthouse suite." "Of course." Emma's enthusiasm was palpable. This was clearly a real guest, someone worth her time. "The penthouse is our crown jewel. It features 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, panoramic views of Lake Michigan, and a private terrace. The rate is $5,000 per night." "That sounds lovely," Maya said. "I'll need it for 3 nights, starting tonight." Emma's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Wonderful. May I have your name, please?" "Maya Chen." The name meant nothing to Emma. She continued typing, professional and efficient, so different from the mockery of this morning. "And will you be paying with a credit card, Ms. Chen?" "I will," Maya said, pulling out a black card from her purse. An exclusive invitation-only card given to only the wealthiest clients. Emma's eyes widened slightly when she saw it, her professionalism notching up another level. "Excellent. And may I see your identification?" Maya handed over her driver's license. As Emma processed the information, Maya watched her carefully. There was no recognition in Emma's eyes, no moment of realization that she was checking in the same person she'd humiliated hours earlier. "Ms. Chen, I just need you to sign here," Emma said, sliding the registration form across the desk. "Is there anything special we can arrange for your stay? Champagne in the room? Dinner reservations?" "Actually," Maya said, signing the form, "I'm here for business. I'm considering your hotel for a major corporate event, potentially our annual company conference. It would be about 500 guests for 3 days." Emma's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Oh, Ms. Chen, that would be absolutely wonderful. The Grand Lake would be honored to host such an event. I should connect you with our events manager immediately. That would be helpful, Maya said. But first, I'd like to meet with the general manager. Is he or she available? Mr. Harrison? Let me check. Emma picked up the phone, her demeanor now obsequious. Mr. Harrison, this is Emma at the front desk. I have a VIP guest who would like to speak with you about a potential large-scale corporate event. A pause. Yes, sir. Right away. She hung up and beamed at Maya. Mr. Harrison will be right down. He's very excited to meet you. I'm sure he is, Maya said quietly. Within minutes, a tall man in his 50s emerged from the elevator, his suit impeccable, his smile wide and welcoming. Richard Harrison had been managing luxury hotels for 30 years, and he knew how to spot a lucrative opportunity. Ms. Chen, he said, extending his hand. What an absolute pleasure. Emma tells me you're considering us for a corporate event. I am, Maya said, shaking his hand. Though I have some concerns about your establishment that I'd like to discuss privately. Harrison's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. Of course. Please, let's go to my office where we can talk comfortably. As they walked toward the elevator, Maya glanced back at Emma, who was watching them go with satisfaction, probably already calculating her commission on such a large booking. Emma had no idea that the woman she'd mocked that morning was now about to determine not just the hotel's future, but possibly her own career. In the elevator, Harrison made small talk about the hotel's amenities, but Maya remained quiet, her expression neutral. When they reached his office, a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, he gestured to a leather chair. Please, sit. Can I offer you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be fine, Maya said, settling into the chair. As Harrison poured water from a crystal pitcher, Maya looked around his office. Photos on the wall showed him with various celebrities and dignitaries. Awards and certificates lined the shelves. This was a man proud of his success, his reputation. So, Harrison said, handing her the glass and sitting across from her, tell me about this corporate event. Your company is? Horizon Tech Solutions, Maya said, watching his face carefully. The recognition was immediate. Harrison's eyes widened. Horizon Tech. You're that Maya Chen? The CEO. Maya smiled. I am. Ms. Chen, I had no idea. This is such an honor. Horizon Tech is legendary in the business world. Your story, building a billion-dollar company from your college dorm room, it's inspirational. Thank you, Maya said. Though I should clarify something, Mr. Harrison. This morning, I was already here. At your hotel. Confusion crossed his face. This morning? I don't understand. Maya leaned forward slightly. This morning, I walked into your lobby wearing old clothes, looking tired and dusty. Your staff, particularly Emma at the front desk, mocked me, laughed at me, and had security escort me out before I could even ask a simple question. The color drained from Harrison's face. The silence in Richard Harrison's office was suffocating. He sat frozen, his mouth slightly open, his mind clearly racing through the implications of what Maya had just told him. The prestigious corporate event that could have been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars was evaporating before his eyes. Ms. Chen, he finally managed, his voice hoarse. I don't know what to say. If what you're describing is true. It's true, Maya interrupted quietly. And I can prove it. I'm certain your lobby cameras recorded the entire incident. Around 9:30 this morning. Harrison's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his desk phone. I need to review this footage immediately. And Ms. Chen, please know that this is absolutely not, how the Grand Lake Hotel operates. If our staff behaved this way, there will be consequences. I'm not looking for consequences, Maya said, surprising him. Not immediately, anyway. Harrison paused. confused. I don't understand. Maya stood and walked to the window, looking out over the Chicago skyline. Mr. Harrison, I didn't come back here for revenge. I came back because I want to understand something. I want to know why your staff felt entitled to treat someone that way. And I want to know if you're willing to fix it, truly fix it, not just fire a few people and move on. Ms. Chen, anyone who treated you that way will be terminated. I can promise you that. Maya turned back to face him. That's exactly what I don't want. Firing people is easy. It makes you feel like you've solved the problem, but you haven't. The problem isn't just Emma or the security guard. The problem is the culture that made them think their behavior was acceptable. Harrison sat back, processing this unexpected turn. What do you propose? I propose an experiment, Maya said, returning to her seat. I want to see how your team reacts when they learn the truth. I want to see if they can learn from this, if they can grow. Because here's what I believe, Mr. Harrison. Everyone deserves a second chance. But only if they're willing to do the work to deserve it. An experiment. Harrison repeated carefully. Yes. I want you to call a staff meeting for this evening. All front-of-house staff, front desk, security, concierge. Don't tell them why. Just that there's an important announcement. And then, Maya's expression was unreadable. Then we'll see what they're really made of. 3 hours later, the hotel's conference room was filled with murmuring staff members. Emma sat near the front, whispering to Ryan, who'd been called in from his day off. Marcus, the security guard, stood near the back, arms crossed, looking annoyed at the unexpected meeting. What do you think this is about? Emma whispered. Ryan shrugged. Probably some corporate nonsense. New protocols or something. I heard Harrison was meeting with some big-shot CEO, Emma said, perking up. Maybe we're getting acquired or something. That could mean bonuses. One can hope, Ryan said with a grin. The door opened, and Richard Harrison entered, his expression grave. Behind him walked Maya Chen, now wearing a different outfit, deliberately chosen. She wore the same torn jacket from this morning over her expensive suit. In her hands, she carried the worn backpack. Emma didn't notice at first. She was checking her phone. But Ryan nudged her, and she looked up. Her face went white. Good evening, everyone, Harrison began, his voice tight. Thank you for coming on short notice. I'd like to introduce you to Maya Chen, CEO of Horizon Tech Solutions. Polite applause began, but it was scattered and confused. Several staff members were staring at Maya's jacket, at the backpack, trying to reconcile the professional woman before them with her strange choice of accessories. Emma's hands were shaking. She looked at Ryan, whose face had gone pale. They both knew. Oh God, they knew. Some of you, Maya said, her voice calm and clear, met me this morning. Though you didn't know it was me. The room erupted in confused whispers. Staff members looked at each other, trying to understand. This morning, Maya continued, I walked into your lobby wearing this jacket and carrying this backpack. I was covered in dust from visiting a construction site. I looked homeless. And when I asked about booking a room, I was mocked, laughed at, and thrown out. The silence that followed was absolute. Emma had started crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Ryan stared at the floor. Marcus closed his eyes, his jaw clenched. Now, Maya said, Mr. Harrison's first instinct was to fire everyone involved. And that would be the easy solution. But I'm not interested in easy solutions. I'm interested in real change. She walked slowly along the front of the room, making eye contact with various staff members. I built my company on the belief that people are more than their worst moments. That everyone deserves a chance to learn, to grow, to become better. I've hired people that other companies rejected. I've given opportunities to people who'd made mistakes. And some of those people are now my most valuable employees. Emma looked up, hope flickering through her tears. But, Maya continued, her voice hardening. There's a difference between making a mistake and making a choice. What happened this morning wasn't a mistake. It was a choice to judge someone based on their appearance, a choice to mock someone who asked for help, a choice to treat someone as less than human because they didn't meet your standards of what a worthy person looks like. She paused, letting her words sink in. So here's what's going to happen. Everyone who was involved in this morning's incident, Emma, Ryan, Marcus, you're going to write me a letter. Not an excuse, not an apology designed to save your jobs, but a real, honest reflection on why you behaved the way you did. What you were thinking, what you were feeling, what made you think it was okay. Emma wiped her eyes, nodding frantically. You have 1 week, Maya said. After I read your letters, I'll decide whether Horizon Tech will hold its conference here. And I'll decide whether to recommend that Mr. Harrison give you another chance. She turned to face the entire room. For the rest of you, this is a reminder. Every person who walks through those doors deserves respect. Not because of what they're wearing, not because of how much money they might spend, but because they're human beings. The person you dismissed today might be your future boss, your future friend, or simply someone trying to survive a difficult day. Maya picked up her backpack and walked toward the door, then turned back. We judge people in seconds and wonder why the world feels so cruel. Maybe it's time we all thought harder about the person behind the appearance. As she left, the room remained silent. Emma sat with her head in her hands, crying. Ryan stared at nothing. Marcus looked shaken to his core. And Richard Harrison stood at the front of the room, realizing that he'd just witnessed something rare. A powerful person choosing to use their power not to destroy, but to educate. The question was whether anyone would learn the lesson. The week that followed was the longest of Emma's life. Each night, she sat at a small kitchen table, staring at a blank piece of paper, trying to find words that were honest enough, vulnerable enough, real enough. What do you say to someone you've wronged so completely? She'd started and stopped dozens of times. Each attempt felt inadequate, too defensive, too shallow, too much like making excuses. By the 4th night, Emma finally stopped trying to sound good and started trying to be truthful. She picked up her pen and let the words flow without filtering them. Dear Ms. Chen, I could tell you I'm sorry. And I am more than I can express. But I know that's not what you're looking for. You want to know why. So I'll tell you, even though it makes me sick to admit it. When you walked in that morning, the first thing I felt was disgust. Not pity, not compassion, but disgust. And do you know what scared me most when I realized who you were? It wasn't losing my job. It was realizing that I'm the kind of person who feels disgust for another human being based on their appearance. My mother raised me better than this. She cleaned houses for rich families to put me through school. She came home exhausted every day, with dirt under her fingernails, wearing the same worn clothes over and over. And those families treated her like she was invisible. I watched it hurt her. I promised myself I'd never be like them. But I became exactly like them. I think what happened was that somewhere along the way, I started measuring my worth by my job, by my position, by the expensive hotel I worked at. I needed to feel superior to someone. And you were an easy target. That morning, I chose cruelty because it made me feel bigger. I was wrong. I was deeply, horribly wrong. If you give me another chance, I won't waste it. But if you don't, I'll understand. Some lessons come with consequences, and maybe losing this job is mine. I'm sorry for who I became that morning. I'm working on becoming someone my mother would recognize again. Emma Rodriguez. Across town, Ryan sat in his apartment, wrestling with his own demons. His letter was more analytical, reflecting the way his mind worked. Ms. Chen, I've been trying to understand why I laughed at you, why I participated in something so obviously cruel. Here's what I've realized. I didn't see you as a person. I saw you as a category, homeless person, problem, disruption. And once I put you in that category, you stopped being real to me. It's a defense mechanism, I think. The world is full of suffering, And if I treated every person's struggle as real and immediate and important, I'd be overwhelmed. So I create distance. I categorize. I dismiss. But that's just a fancy way of saying I dehumanized you. And that's unforgivable. I work in hospitality. My entire job is supposed to be about seeing people, welcoming them, making them feel valued. Instead, I made you feel worthless. I failed at the most basic level of my profession and my humanity. You said everyone deserves a second chance. I don't know if I deserve one. But if you give it to me, I promise to spend it learning to see people, really see them, instead of just categorizing them. Ryan Torres. Marcus, the security guard, took the longest to write his letter. As a former Marine, he'd been trained to follow orders, to maintain order, to identify and neutralize threats. But Maya wasn't a threat. She was never a threat. Ms. Chen. In the Marines, we had rules of engagement. Clear guidelines about when force was appropriate. I've been thinking about those rules this week, wondering what happened to them in civilian life. When I approached you, I didn't see a threat to safety. I saw a threat to the hotel's image. And I chose the hotel's image over your dignity. I put my hands on you. I escorted you out. I treated you like a problem to be solved, rather than a person to be respected. As someone who took an oath to protect people, I violated everything I once stood for. My mother is elderly now. Sometimes when she goes out, people treat her like she's in the way, like she's a burden. It breaks my heart every time I see it. Yet I did the same thing to you. You asked us to think about why we behaved the way we did. Here's my truth. I was following orders without thinking about whether those orders were right. Emma said to remove you, and I removed you. I didn't question it. I didn't think about it. I just acted. But following orders isn't an excuse. It never was, and it never should be. I should have asked questions. I should have given you the respect every person deserves. If you give me another chance, I'll use it to become the kind of security guard who protects everyone's dignity, not just the hotel's reputation. Marcus Williams. At the end of the week, Maya sat in her penthouse suite, the same one she tried to book that first morning, with 3 handwritten letters spread before her. She read each one slowly multiple times, looking not just at the words but at what lay beneath them. These weren't the polished apologies of people trying to manipulate their way back into good graces. These were raw, honest confessions from people who'd looked at themselves and didn't like what they'd found. That took courage. Maya picked up her phone and called Richard Harrison. "I've read the letters," she said. "And?" Harrison's voice was tense. "And I'd like to meet with Emma, Ryan, and Marcus tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock. Your office." "Ms. Chin, have you made a decision about the conference? About their employment?" Maya smiled slightly. "I have. But they deserve to hear it from me directly." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Ryan paced his apartment until 3 in the morning. Marcus sat in his darkened living room, staring at a photo of his mother, wondering if he'd disappointed her irreparably. None of them knew what tomorrow would bring. But they'd done what Maya asked. They'd been honest, even when honesty hurt. Now they would face the consequences. The morning sun streamed through Richard Harrison's office windows, but the 3 people sitting in chairs facing his desk barely noticed. Emma's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Ryan stared at the floor, his jaw clenched. Marcus sat with military straightness, but his eyes betrayed his nervousness. The door opened, and Maya Chan entered, carrying a leather folder. She wore a simple navy dress and pearls, professional, elegant, unintimidating. She wanted this to be a conversation, not an interrogation. "Good morning," she said, settling into a chair that Harrison quickly positioned for her. "Good morning, Ms. Chen," they mumbled in unison. Maya opened her folder and pulled out their 3 letters. "I read these multiple times," she began. "And I want you to know that what you wrote mattered. Not because it changes what happened, but because it shows you understand why what happened was wrong." Emma's eyes filled with tears again, but she blinked them back. Emma, Maya said gently, you wrote about your mother, about watching her be treated as invisible by the families she worked for. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. That took courage to share. It's painful to realize we've become what we once despised. But awareness is the first step toward change. Maya paused. Your mother would be proud that you're facing this honestly. Emma couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Thank you, she whispered. Maya turned to Ryan. You wrote about categorizing people, about using mental shortcuts to create emotional distance. Yes, ma'am, Ryan said quietly. It's a common psychological defense, Maya said. We all do it to some degree. But you're right. In hospitality, it's antithetical to your purpose. Your job is to break down those categories, not reinforce them. Ryan finally looked up, meeting her eyes. I know that now. I wish I'd known it then. Now you do, Maya said simply. The question is what you'll do with that knowledge. She turned to Marcus. And you wrote about following orders without questioning them. Marcus straightened even more, if that was possible. Yes, ma'am. It's not an excuse, but it's the truth. It's honest, Maya said. And honesty is what I asked for. She set the letters down and looked at all three of them. Here's what I've decided. First, regarding the corporate conference, Horizon Tech will be holding our annual event at the Grand Lake Hotel. Mr. Harrison has assured me that changes will be implemented to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Harrison nodded vigorously. Absolutely, Ms. Chen. We're implementing new training programs. Maya held up a hand gently. We'll discuss the details later. She turned back to the three staff members. Second, regarding your employment. I've recommended to Mr. Harrison that you all be retained. The shock on their faces was absolute. Emma gasped. Ryan's mouth fell open. Even stoic Marcus looked stunned. However, Maya continued, her voice firm, there are conditions. The relief on their faces shifted to attention. Emma, you'll be enrolled in a customer service training program. Not because you don't know how to do your job, but because I want you to understand the psychology of service at a deeper level. You'll also spend 1 day a week volunteering at a homeless shelter for the next 6 months. Emma nodded quickly. Yes, Ms. Chen. I'll do it gladly. Ryan, you'll be leading the development of new protocols for how staff interact with all guests, regardless of appearance. You have an analytical mind. Use it to create systems that prevent what happened to me from happening to anyone else. I will, Ryan said, his voice stronger now. Thank you for this chance. Marcus, you'll be working with Mr. Harrison to train all security staff on dignity-based security practices. Your military background gives you leadership skills. Use them to teach others that protecting people includes protecting their dignity. Marcus stood and saluted instinctively, then caught himself and sat back down, embarrassed. It will be my honor, ma'am. Maya smiled slightly at his gesture. There's one more thing. All three of you will meet with me once a month for the next year. I want to hear about what you're learning, how you're growing, and what challenges you're facing. Consider me a mentor, not an overseer. You'd do that for us? Emma asked, disbelief in her voice. After what we did. Maya leaned forward. Do you know why I built Horizon Tech? It wasn't just to make money or create software. It was because I believed that technology could help people see each other more clearly, connect more deeply, understand each other better. But technology can only do so much. Real change happens person by person, choice by choice, moment by moment. She looked at each of them in turn. You three made a choice that hurt someone. Now you have a choice to make every day. Who will you become? Will you be people who made one mistake, learned from it, and became better? Or will you be people who stayed stuck in shame and never grew? We want to grow, Emma said firmly, and Ryan and Marcus nodded in agreement. Then prove it, Maya said, standing. Not to me. Prove it to yourselves. Prove it to the next person who walks through those doors looking like they don't belong. Prove it by becoming the kind of people who make others feel seen, valued, and welcome. As Maya walked to the door, Emma stood suddenly. Ms. Chen. Maya turned back. Why? Emma's voice cracked. Why did you give us this chance? Most people in your position would have just destroyed us. We deserved it. Maya was quiet for a moment, then smiled softly. Because 10 years ago, I was sitting in a bank, trying to get a loan for my startup. I was young, I was scared, and I didn't look like someone who had a billion-dollar idea. The loan officer dismissed me in 3 minutes. He made me feel worthless. She paused, remembering. I went home that day and cried. But then I got angry, not at him, but at a world that teaches us to judge so quickly. I promised myself that if I ever had power, I'd use it differently. I'd use it to lift people up, not tear them down. Emma wiped her eyes. Thank you for keeping that promise. After Maya left, the three of them sat in stunned silence. Finally, Ryan spoke. We have to make this worth it. We can't waste this chance. We won't, Marcus said firmly. Emma looked at her colleagues, these people who'd laughed with her that terrible morning, who'd shared in her cruelty. Now they were bonded by something deeper. The shared experience of being forgiven when they didn't deserve it, and the shared responsibility to become worthy of that forgiveness. We start today, Emma said. Right now. We become different people starting this moment. They stood together, shook hands like they were making a pact, and left Harrison's office. None of them noticed that Maya was still in the building, standing by a window in the lobby, watching them. She saw the determination on their faces, the way they walked with new purpose. She smiled. This was why she'd built her company, why she'd worked so hard, why she'd never forgotten where she came from. Power wasn't about domination. It was about transformation. And transformation, she knew, always started with a choice to be better than you were yesterday. The Grand Lake Hotel bustled with its usual midday activity. Tourists checked in, business travelers rushed through, families gathered in the lobby planning their Chicago adventures. But something had shifted in the atmosphere, something subtle but real. At the front desk, Emma greeted an elderly man with a genuine smile. His coat was threadbare, his shoes worn, and he looked uncertain about whether he belonged. Good afternoon, sir, Emma said warmly. Welcome to the Grand Lake. How may I help you today? The man hesitated. I was supposed to meet my daughter here. She's staying in room 412. But I'm not sure if I can just. Of course you can, Emma interrupted gently. Let me call up to her room and let her know you're here. What's her name? As she made the call, Emma noticed Marcus approaching, not to remove the man, but to offer him a chair. Would you like to sit while you wait, sir? Can I get you some water? The old man's eyes widened in surprise. That's very kind of you, young man. After he was settled, Marcus caught Emma's eye and they shared a small smile. This was who they were becoming. Later that afternoon, Ryan was training 2 new front desk staff members. Remember, he said, every guest deserves the same level of respect and service, regardless of how they're dressed or what room they've booked. We judge by character, not appearance. We welcome by humanity, not by credit score. One of the trainees raised her hand. But what if someone really is just coming in from the cold and not an actual guest? Ryan's expression became serious. Then we offer them dignity anyway. We direct them to resources that can help. We treat them like human beings. Because that's always the right thing to do. The transformation wasn't just happening with Emma, Ryan, and Marcus. It was rippling through the entire hotel staff. Richard Harrison had taken Maya's feedback seriously, implementing comprehensive training that emphasized empathy, dignity, and human-centered service. The hotel's online reviews had started to reflect the change. The staff here treated my grandmother like royalty, even though she's not fancy. They made her feel so special. This is what hospitality should be. 5 stars. I've stayed at many luxury hotels, but the genuine warmth here is unmatched. You can tell the staff actually care about people, not just profits. 5 stars. Meanwhile, Maya had been true to her word. Once a month, she met with Emma, Ryan, and Marcus in a private room at a coffee shop near the hotel. These weren't formal meetings but genuine mentorship sessions where they discussed challenges, growth, and lessons learned. At their 3-month meeting, Emma shared a story. "Last week, a woman came in who reminded me so much of your first visit, Ms. Chen. She looked exhausted, her clothes were dirty, and she asked if we had any rooms available. My old instinct, just for a second, was to judge. But then I stopped myself. What did you do?" Maya asked. "I treated her exactly like I'd treat anyone else. Showed her our room options, explained the rates. She ended up booking a modest room for 2 nights. As she was leaving the desk, she turned back and said, 'Thank you for not making me feel ashamed.' I almost cried right there." Maya nodded, understanding. Those moments, when you feel the old pattern trying to reassert itself and you consciously choose differently, that's when real change happens. Ryan added, "I've been documenting every interaction where staff members go above and beyond in showing dignity to all guests. We're building a case study library that we'll use for ongoing training. The stories are incredible." "Like what?" Maya asked. "Like Marcus spending 30 minutes helping a guest who speaks limited English navigate the Chicago transit system. Like Emma arranging for a guest service dog to have a special meal. Like our concierge personally driving an elderly guest to a medical appointment when their ride fell through." Marcus leaned forward. "Ms. Chen, I wanted you to know, I've started volunteering with a veterans organization that helps homeless vets. I see so many guys who remind me of who I could have been if circumstances were different. It's humbled me in ways I can't fully express." Maya smiled. "I'm proud of all 3 of you. You've taken this opportunity and turned it into something meaningful." "Because you gave us the chance," Emma said softly. "Most people wouldn't have." "Most people are afraid of forgiveness," Maya replied. "They think it means accepting bad behavior. But real forgiveness is about believing in someone's capacity to change, and then giving them the space to prove it." As their meeting concluded, Emma pulled out an envelope. "Ms. Chen, I wanted you to have this. I'm writing a guide for new hospitality workers about dignity-centered service. It's based on everything I've learned. I was hoping you might read it and give me feedback." Maya took the envelope, touched. "I'd be honored." That evening, in her penthouse office, Maya read Emma's guide. It was thoughtful, practical, and deeply personal. Emma had transformed her shame into wisdom, her mistake into a mission. Maya picked up her phone and called her executive assistant, James. "I want to create a grant program through Horizon Tech," she said, "for hospitality workers who want to develop dignity-centered service initiatives. Emma Rodriguez will be our first recipient." "That's a wonderful idea, Ms. Chen," James replied. "What will you call the program?" Maya thought for a moment, looking out at the Chicago skyline where the Grand Lake Hotel's lights twinkled among thousands of others. "The Second Chance Initiative," she said. "Because everyone deserves one." A week later, Maya stood in the Grand Lake Hotel's ballroom, which was being prepared for Horizon Tech's annual conference. Emma, Ryan, and Marcus stood beside her, helping oversee the preparations. "Your company is going to love this venue," Emma said, adjusting a floral centerpiece. Maya looked around at the space, at the staff working diligently, at the 3 people who had become unexpected friends. "You know what? I think they will. But not just because it's beautiful. Because there's something real here now. Something authentic." Richard Harrison approached, beaming. "Ms. Chen, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. And for the changes you've inspired here. We're not the same hotel we were 3 months ago." "No," Maya agreed. "You're better." As she left that evening, Maya paused in the lobby, the same lobby where she'd been mocked and dismissed. She smiled, remembering the dusty girl who'd walked through those doors, and the powerful woman she'd become not despite that treatment, but because of what she chose to do about it. The world was full of moments like that first visit. Moments where people showed you who they really were, where cruelty could crush or transform you. Maya had chosen transformation, both for herself and for others. And in doing so, she'd proven that the greatest power wasn't the ability to destroy those who wronged you. It was the ability to help them become better. 6 months had passed since Maya's first visit to the Grand Lake Hotel. The Horizon Tech Conference had been a massive success, and the hotel's reputation had grown substantially. But Maya hadn't forgotten her monthly meetings with Emma, Ryan, and Marcus. They'd become more than mentor sessions. They'd become genuine friendships. It was during their 6th meeting that Ryan finally asked the question they'd all been wondering. "Ms. Chin, can I ask you something personal?" Maya looked up from her coffee. "Of course. That day you came to the hotel dressed the way you did. Was it really just spontaneous? Or were you testing us?" Maya was quiet for a moment, and something shifted in her expression. "Both," she finally said. "And neither." She set down her cup. "I think it's time I told you the full story. The one I don't usually share." Emma and Marcus leaned in, sensing something important. "I told you about the banker who rejected me," Maya began. "What I didn't tell you is that it broke something in me that day. I went home, looked in the mirror at my cheap clothes and scared face, and I made myself a promise. I would become so successful that no one would ever dismiss me again." "And you did," Emma said softly. "Yes. I built Horizon Tech. I became a billionaire. I wore expensive clothes, lived in a mansion, drove luxury cars. And for a while, I thought I'd won. I thought I'd proven everyone wrong." Maya's eyes grew distant. "But about 2 years ago, something happened that changed everything." She pulled out her phone and showed them a photo of a young girl, maybe 16, with bright eyes and a hesitant smile. "This is Lily. She came to our office 2 years ago for a high school project, interviewing local CEOs about their success. My assistant tried to turn her away because she didn't have an appointment. But I overheard, and something about her reminded me of myself at that age." Maya's voice softened. "So I met with her. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about her dreams of studying computer science, but her family couldn't afford college. She lived in a shelter with her mother. Her clothes were donated, her backpack held together with duct tape." "Like you were dressed that day at our hotel," Marcus realized. "Exactly. After our meeting, I set up a scholarship fund for her. Full ride to any university she wanted. But then I made a mistake." Maya's expression darkened. "I took her to a business lunch at an exclusive restaurant. I wanted to show her what her future could look like." Emma seemed to understand where this was going. "They treated her badly." "Worse than badly," Maya said, pain in her voice. "The maitre d' took one look at her and suggested we use the service entrance. Other diners stared. Our waiter was condescending and rude. And I sat there in my designer suit, with all my money and power, and I realized something horrible." "What?" Ryan asked quietly. "That I'd become part of the system that once rejected me. I'd climbed so high that I'd forgotten what it felt like down below. I'd surrounded myself with luxury and success, and somewhere along the way, I'd stopped seeing the people I'd left behind." Tears formed in Maya's eyes. Lily saw it too. She looked at me across that table and said, "Ms. Chen, you've forgotten what it's like to be me." And she was right. The 3 of them sat in silence, absorbing this revelation. "After that lunch," Maya continued, "Lily stopped returning my calls. The scholarship sat unused. I tried to help her, but instead, I'd shown her a world that would judge and reject her. I'd hurt her worse than if I'd never met her at all." "Did you ever reconnect?" Emma asked. Maya nodded slowly. "Eventually. It took months of persistence, but I finally convinced her to meet me again. She told me that she'd felt like a charity case, like I was trying to turn her into someone she wasn't. She didn't want to become successful if it meant losing her compassion, her understanding of struggle. What did you do? I listened. Really listened. And then I changed. Maya looked at each of them. I started my experiment, occasionally dressing down and visiting businesses to see how they treated people who couldn't benefit them. The hotel was my 11th such visit. 11. Marcus repeated. Yes. I've been to restaurants, retail stores, medical clinics, law offices, all kinds of places. Some passed the test with flying colors. They treated everyone with dignity regardless of appearance. But many didn't. Many revealed the same ugliness you showed me that morning. Ryan winced. What did you do at those other places? Various things. Sometimes I left reviews. Sometimes I met with management. Sometimes I simply took my business elsewhere. But with you three, something was different. 1 year after the incident, the Grand Lake Hotel was hosting its annual Excellence in Hospitality Awards ceremony. The ballroom glowed with candlelight, and Chicago's top hospitality professionals filled the elegant space. Richard Harrison stood at the podium, nervous but proud. Tonight, he announced, we're introducing a new award, the Dignity in Service Award, sponsored by Horizon Tech Solutions. And I'm honored that Ms. Maya Chen herself will present the first recipients. Applause filled the room as Maya took the stage, elegant in a midnight blue gown. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, looking nervous but determined, stood Emma, Ryan, and Marcus, all dressed in formal attire. Good evening, Maya began. A year ago, I walked into the Grand Lake Hotel looking like I didn't belong. I was dusty, my clothes were torn, and I looked like someone who needed help rather than someone who could provide it. And I was treated accordingly, with mockery, dismissal, and ultimately, removal. The room fell silent. Many people had heard rumors of this incident, but hearing Maya confirm it publicly was shocking. The 3 people standing behind me, Maya continued, were responsible for that treatment. Emma Rodriguez, Ryan Torres, and Marcus Williams. Emma's hands trembled. This public acknowledgement of their failure was terrifying, even a year later. They could have made excuses, Maya said. They could have blamed their training, their managers, their bad day. But they didn't. They looked at themselves honestly, admitted they're wrong, and committed to change. And then, and this is the important part, they actually changed. Maya gestured for them to join her at the podium. Reluctantly, they stepped forward. Over the past year, these 3 individuals have transformed not just their own practices but the entire culture of the Grand Lake Hotel. Emma developed a training program that's now being used by hotels across the city. Ryan created protocols that ensure dignity-centered service for all guests. Marcus established security practices that protect everyone's humanity. She paused, looking at each of them. But the real test of change isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when no one's looking. So I want to share a story that these 3 don't know I know about. Emma, Ryan, and Marcus exchanged confused glances. 3 months ago, Maya continued, a woman named Patricia Moore checked into the Grand Lake Hotel. Patricia is a journalist who specializes in exposé pieces about discrimination in public spaces. She came to your hotel specifically to test whether the changes I'd heard about were real or just PR. The 3 of them went pale. They had no idea they'd been tested. Patricia disguised herself as a homeless woman, much like I had appeared. She walked into your lobby on a busy Saturday afternoon, looking disheveled and confused. And do you know what happened? The room was silent, hanging on every word. Emma, you left your post at the front desk and approached her with genuine concern. You asked if she was okay, if she needed help. When she said she was looking for a place to stay but wasn't sure she could afford it, you didn't laugh. You didn't judge. You pulled up your personal phone and found her information about affordable hotels and shelters in the area. Emma's eyes widened. She remembered that afternoon, the older woman who'd seemed lost. Ryan, Maya continued, you saw this interaction and immediately brought over a bottle of water and offered to call social services if she needed assistance. You treated her with the same courtesy you'd show any guest. Ryan covered his mouth. Emotional. And Marcus, you stood nearby, not to threaten or remove her, but to ensure her safety. When a belligerent guest made a rude comment, you politely but firmly asked him to move along. You protected her dignity. Marcus's eyes glistened with tears. Patricia spent 30 minutes in that lobby, observing how your entire staff treated her. And then do you know what she did? She checked into a room, cleaned up, and requested a meeting with Mr. Harrison. She told him that in 15 years of investigative journalism, she'd never seen such a genuine transformation in an organization. Maya pulled out a magazine from behind the podium, Chicago Hospitality Today, and held it up. The cover story read, "The Grand Lake Hotel, where second chances created first-class service." Patricia wrote this feature article about your hotel, about your transformation, and about what real change looks like. It's been read by over 2 million people. The room erupted in applause. Emma, Ryan, and Marcus stood in shock, tears streaming down their faces. "This," Maya said, her voice strong, "is why I believe in second chances. Not because everyone deserves them, we all make choices we must be accountable for, but because when people genuinely commit to growth, the ripple effects can change everything." She picked up 3 Crystal Awards from the podium. "Tonight, I'm proud to present the first Dignity in Service Awards to Emma Rodriguez, Ryan Torres, and Marcus Williams. Not despite their past, but because of what they did with it." As she handed each of them their award, the room rose in a standing ovation. But more importantly, Emma, Ryan, and Marcus stood there transformed, not just in action, but in spirit. After the ceremony, as guests mingled and celebrated, a young hotel worker approached Emma nervously. "Ms. Rodriguez, I just started here last month. I wanted you to know that your training program changed how I see my job. My mom cleans houses for rich people, and they treat her like she's invisible. But because of what you taught us, I'll never treat anyone that way." Emma hugged the young woman, unable to speak through her tears. Across the room, Maya watched with quiet satisfaction. This was what transformation looked like. Not just personal change, but generational impact. The lesson learned by 3 people a year ago was now being passed to dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Later that night, after most guests had left, Maya stood with Emma, Ryan, and Marcus on the hotel's rooftop terrace, looking out over the Chicago skyline. "You passed the test," Maya said softly. "Not the one Patricia gave you. You didn't know about that. You passed the real test. You changed when no one was making you, when the pressure was off, when you could have slipped back into old patterns. That's authentic transformation. We couldn't have done it without you," Emma said. "No," Maya corrected gently. "I gave you an opportunity. You did the work. Those are very different things." Marcus spoke up, his voice rough with emotion. "Ms. Chen, I want you to know, that day you walked into our hotel was the worst and best day of my life. Worst because I saw who I'd become. Best because you showed me who I could be." "That's true for all of us," Ryan added. "You gave us the gift of seeing ourselves clearly. That's rare." Maya smiled. "You know what I've learned from all of this? Power isn't about control. It's about influence. The power to humiliate is nothing compared to the power to transform." As they stood there, the city lights twinkling below, each of them understood something profound. They were living proof that people could change, that second chances could work, that dignity and respect could be taught, learned, and multiplied. The story that began with a dusty girl and a cruel dismissal had become something larger than any of them, a testament to the transformative power of accountability. "What made us different?" Emma asked quietly. Maya smiled slightly. "Your letters. The other people I confronted either made excuses or gave corporate apologies that meant nothing. But you 3, you looked at yourselves honestly. You owned your behavior without justification. That's rare." She pulled out another photo on her phone. This one showed Maya standing with Lily at a university graduation ceremony. Lily wore a cap and gown, her smile radiant. "This is from 3 months ago. Lily graduated top of her class in computer science. She's starting at Horizon Tech next month. You helped her after all, Marcus said warmly. No, Maya corrected. She helped me. She reminded me why I started this company in the first place. Not to build wealth or power, but to create opportunities for people like her, like I used to be. Emma reached across the table and took Maya's hand. Thank you for telling us this. For trusting us with your story. I'm telling you because you need to understand something, Maya said seriously. The work you're doing at the hotel, treating everyone with dignity, training others, building new systems, it's not just about good customer service. It's about recognizing humanity in everyone, especially in the people society trains us to overlook. We understand now, Ryan said. We really do. Maya looked at her watch. Actually, there's someone I'd like you to meet. She should be arriving any minute. As if on cue, the coffee shop door opened, and a young woman entered, professional, confident, wearing a Horizon Tech employee badge. It was Lily. Maya stood and hugged her. Lily, these are the 3 people I've been telling you about. Emma, Ryan, and Marcus, the ones who taught me that second chances can create remarkable transformations. Lily shook hands with each of them, her smile genuine. Ms. Chen talks about you all the time. She says you're proof that one moment doesn't define a person. What matters is what you do after that moment. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for saying that. We're trying every day to be worthy of the chance we were given. I know the feeling, Lily said softly. Ms. Chen gave me a chance when no one else would. Now I'm paying it forward at Horizon Tech, mentoring other students from backgrounds like mine. The 5 of them talked for another hour. Not about business or hospitality, but about life, growth, and the power of believing in people's potential for change. As they were leaving, Lily pulled Emma aside. Can I tell you something? When Ms. Chen first told me about what happened at your hotel, I was angry. I wanted her to destroy you all. But she refused. She said revenge was easy, but transformation was hard, and worthwhile. I didn't understand then. But watching you now, seeing who you've become, I get it. Emma wiped her eyes. We're not perfect. We still make mistakes. But we're trying. That's all any of us can do, Lily said. Outside the coffee shop, Maya stood with her newfound friends. People who'd once humiliated her, who'd now become champions of the very values she held dear. The Chicago wind picked up, scattering leaves across the sidewalk. You know, Maya said thoughtfully, I used to think success was about never being judged again. But I was wrong. Success is about being judged and not letting it change your values. It's about having power and choosing to use it wisely. You've taught us that, Marcus said. Every day you teach us that. Maya smiled. No, we taught each other. That's how transformation works. It's never one-directional. You changed me as much as I changed you. As they went their separate ways, each of them carried something precious. The understanding that people are capable of profound change when given the combination of honest accountability and genuine opportunity. The story that had begun with humiliation had transformed into something beautiful, a reminder that in the end, who we become matters. Forgiveness, and genuine commitment to growth. And somewhere in that beautiful Chicago night, other people. People who'd made mistakes, people who'd been cruel, people who were stuck in patterns they didn't know how to break, might hear this story and believe that they, too, could change. That was the real award. Not the crystal trophy, but the proof that transformation was possible. 2 years had passed since Maya first walked into the Grand Lake Hotel. It was a crisp autumn morning, and she stood once again in front of those same revolving doors. But this time, everything was different. The hotel now displayed a bronze plaque near the entrance. Everyone who enters here deserves dignity, respect, and kindness, regardless of appearance, status, or circumstance. We see people, not categories. Maya smiled as she read it. The words had been Ryan's idea, approved unanimously by staff. Inside, the lobby hummed with its usual energy, but the atmosphere was warmer, more genuine. At the front desk, Emma supervised 2 new trainees, patiently explaining the importance of eye contact and sincere greetings. "Remember," Emma was saying, "you never know who's walking through that door. They might be a CEO, they might be struggling to afford a room, or they might be somewhere in between. But it doesn't matter. They're a person, and they deserve our best." One of the trainees raised her hand. "But Ms. Rodriguez, what if they really can't afford to stay here? What do we do?" Emma smiled, the kind of smile that came from hard-won wisdom. "You still treat them with kindness. You help them find resources. You let them leave with their dignity intact. Because how we treat people in those moments defines who we are, not who they are." Marcus walked by on his rounds, pausing to fist bump a teenager who was visiting the hotel with his father. "Stay in school, young man," Marcus said with a grin. "That's how you build a good future." The father, a working-class man in worn but clean clothes, looked surprised and grateful for the attention. "Thank you for making us feel welcome here. Not all fancy hotels do that." "That's what we're here for," Marcus replied warmly. Ryan emerged from the back office, now the hotel's director of guest experience, a position created specifically for him. He carried a folder full of new protocols he'd been developing. When he spotted Maya, his face lit up. "Ms. Chen, we didn't know you were coming today. I wanted to see something," Maya said mysteriously. "Is Richard available?" "He's in his office. I'll take you up." As they rode the elevator, Ryan shared updates. "We've had 17 other hotels reach out asking to implement our training program. Emma's become something of an industry speaker. She presented at a national conference last month." "I heard," Maya said proudly. "I also heard Marcus started a non-profit helping formerly incarcerated people find work in hospitality." Ryan nodded enthusiastically. "It's incredible. He's placed 43 people in jobs so far. Their retention rate is over 90% because he doesn't just find them work, he mentors them through the transition." In Richard Harrison's office, Maya explained the purpose of her visit. "I want to expand our partnership. Horizon Tech is launching a nationwide initiative called the Dignity Project, training programs for businesses in all sectors, not just hospitality, about creating cultures of dignity and respect." Harrison leaned forward, interested. "And you want the Grand Lake to be part of this?" "Not just part of it," Maya said. "I want it to be the flagship training center. I want Emma, Ryan, and Marcus to lead it." Harrison's eyes widened. "Ms. Chen, that's an incredible opportunity, but I can't afford to lose my 3 best people." Maya held up a hand, smiling. "You wouldn't lose them. They'd be on loan to the Dignity Project while maintaining their roles here. We'd fund additional staff to cover their duties. This hotel becomes a living laboratory where people from across the country come to learn." "This is extraordinary," Harrison said, clearly moved. "After what happened 2 years ago, I never imagined we'd end up here." "That's the point," Maya said. "Mistakes don't have to be endings. They can be beginnings, if we're brave enough to learn from them." That afternoon, Maya gathered Emma, Ryan, and Marcus in a conference room. She explained the Dignity Project and her vision for their roles. "You 3 would be traveling, speaking, training," she said. "You'd be sharing your story, the whole story including the mistakes, to help other organizations create lasting change." Emma spoke first, her voice thoughtful. "Ms. Chin, can I ask you something?" "Why us?" "You could hire professional trainers, people without our baggage." Maya smiled. "Because your baggage, as you call it, is exactly why you're qualified. Professional trainers can teach theory. You can teach transformation. You've lived it. You embody the message that change is possible." "But won't people judge us?" Ryan asked. "When they hear what we did?" "Yes," Maya said honestly. "Some will. But others will see themselves in your story. They'll see their own mistakes, their own potential for growth. Your vulnerability becomes their permission to change. Marcus had been quiet, processing. Finally, he spoke. 2 years ago, I was just following orders, doing my job, thinking that was enough. Today, I run a non-profit, mentor at-risk youth, and apparently, I'm about to become a national trainer on dignity in the workplace. He shook his head in disbelief. How did we get here? One choice at a time, Maya said softly. Every day, you chose to be better than you were the day before. That's how anyone gets anywhere worth going. We're in, Emma said, speaking for all three of them. Whatever you need us to do, we're in. The Dignity Project launched 3 months later with a massive event at the Grand Lake Hotel. 500 business leaders from across the country attended. The keynote speakers were not corporate consultants or famous CEOs. They were Emma, Ryan, and Marcus. Emma stood at the podium, her hands steady despite her nervousness. 2 years ago, she began, I was the person who laughed at someone because of how they looked. I was the person who judged in seconds and decided someone wasn't worthy of basic respect. I was cruel, dismissive, and completely blind to my own humanity. The room was silent, hanging on every word. I'm not proud of who I was. But I'm grateful for what that moment taught me. Because when Maya Chen walked back into our hotel and revealed who she was, I had a choice. I could make excuses, or I could look honestly at myself. I chose honesty. And that choice changed everything. She went on to share the full story. The humiliation, the letters, the second chance, and most importantly, the daily work of becoming someone different. When Ryan took the stage, he spoke about systems and culture. Change can't be about one person deciding to be better. It has to be structural. We created protocols that make dignity the default, not the exception. We built accountability into every interaction. And we made it impossible for our old patterns to resurface. Marcus's speech was the most emotional. I was trained to follow orders without question. But that day, I followed orders that violated my core values. I put my hands on an elderly woman and removed her from a place she had every right to be. That moment haunts me, but it also drives me. Now I teach security personnel that their job isn't just to protect property, it's to protect dignity. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After the conference, Maya found herself alone in the hotel's garden with Lily, who now ran Horizon Tech's community outreach programs. You did it, Lily said softly. You turned your pain into purpose. You transformed people who hurt you into champions of change. That's incredible. Maya shook her head. I didn't do it alone. They did the work. I just opened the door. But you opened the door, Lily insisted. Most people slam it shut. You kept it open wide enough for Grace to walk through. Maya thought about this. You know what I've realized? Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the most powerful thing we can do. When we forgive, we free not just the other person but ourselves. We break the cycle of hurt. Is that why you started all of this? Lily asked. The hotel visits, the Dignity Project. I started it because I remembered what it felt like to be dismissed, Maya said. And I never wanted anyone else to feel that way. But it became something bigger. It became about proving that people can change, that second chances work, that dignity is something we all deserve, not something we have to earn. As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Maya received a text from Emma. Thank you for believing in us when we didn't deserve it. You changed our lives. Maya texted back. You changed your own lives. I just witnessed it. That evening, Maya returned to her office at Horizon Tech headquarters. On her wall hung a photograph from 2 years ago, the security camera image of her standing in the Grand Lake Hotel lobby, dusty and dismissed. Next to it was a recent photo, her standing with Emma, Ryan, and Marcus at the Dignity Project launch, all of them smiling. The journey from one photo to the other represented everything Maya believed in. That our worst moments don't define us, that grace can transform, that second chances can create ripples of change that extend far beyond anything we can imagine. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Chin, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." Maya looked up. "Show her in." A young woman entered, wearing worn clothes, her face tired but determined. She looked like someone who'd been through hard times but hadn't given up. "Ms. Chen," the woman said nervously, "my name is Sarah. I read about what you did at the Grand Lake Hotel. How you gave those workers a second chance. I made a terrible mistake at my job. I was rude to a customer, and I got fired. I've been trying to find work for 6 months, but no one will give me a chance. Everyone says my attitude is the problem." Maya studied her carefully. "Do you think your attitude is the problem?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "It was. I was angry at the world, at my circumstances, and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it. But I've had 6 months to think about it, to understand what I did wrong. I want to be better. I just need someone to believe I can be." Maya smiled, not the polished smile of a CEO, but the warm smile of someone who understood exactly what it felt like to need a second chance. "Sarah," she said gently, "tell me about yourself. Not about your mistake, but about who you want to become." As Sarah began to speak, hope lighting up her face, Maya realized that this was the true legacy of that dusty morning 2 years ago. Not the awards, not the recognition, not even the Dignity Project. The real legacy was this: a chain of grace, extending from one person to another, proving that when we choose to see the humanity in everyone, especially in those who failed, we create a world where transformation is possible. That night, Maya stood at her penthouse window, looking out over Chicago. Somewhere in this city, Emma was training new hospitality workers. Ryan was developing new dignity protocols for a major hotel chain. Marcus was mentoring a formerly incarcerated man trying to rebuild his life. And Sarah was being given the same chance they'd been given, the opportunity to become better than her worst moment. Maya thought about the banker who dismissed her a decade ago, the catalyst for everything she'd become. She'd hated him once, blamed him for the pain he'd caused. But now, she realized something profound. Even that cruel moment had been a gift. It had taught her empathy. It had given her purpose. It had shown her that the most powerful response to being hurt isn't revenge. It's the commitment to ensure no one else experiences that same pain. As the city lights twinkled below, Maya whispered a prayer of gratitude, not just for her success, but for the journey that had taught her that true power lies not in never being knocked down, but in how we help others stand back up. The story that began with humiliation had transformed into a movement. The dusty girl who'd been thrown out of a hotel had become a catalyst for change across an entire industry. But more than that, she'd proven something the world desperately needed to remember: that every person carries infinite potential for transformation, and sometimes all they need is someone brave enough to believe in them when they can't believe in themselves. The revolving doors of the Grand Lake Hotel would continue to turn, welcoming thousands of guests. Some would be wealthy, some struggling. Some would look like they belonged, others wouldn't. But now every person who walked through those doors would be greeted with something precious and rare: genuine dignity, authentic respect, and the understanding that appearances can deceive, but humanity never lies. And somewhere in the city, someone else who'd made a mistake was getting a second chance, because Emma, Ryan, Marcus, and Maya had proven that grace isn't just an idea. It's a choice we make every single day. The choice to see people, not categories. The choice to offer dignity, not judgment. The choice to believe in transformation, even when it seems impossible. That was the real story. Not about a billionaire in disguise, but about the power we all have to change lives, including our own, one moment of grace at a time. The end. Thank you for journeying with us through this incredible story of forgiveness, transformation, and second chances. Folded hands sparkles. If this story touched your heart, like this video and let us know which chapter was your favorite in the comments. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that will change how you see the world. Share this with someone who needs to hear that change is possible. Comment below. Have you ever given or received a second chance? We'd love to hear your story. Remember, Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind. Always. See you in the next story.